I did want to talk about my neighbor.
Okay.
We have pretty good neighbors around us, and I've got one neighbor in particular who I don't believe is a listener of this show. But I just want to run something by you and the listeners, and I want the listeners to hear this, and I want to know their opinion on this. Okay? I think we built an ice rink in the backyard.
Yes. Yeah.
In a nutshell, I built an ice rink in my backyard by filling up a frame, a wood frame with a liner in it. It's 20 by 16. Our temperatures get cold enough that it'll freeze up, and it's an ice rink. And I'll post some pictures of it in the show notes so people can see what this thing looks like.
Yeah, you should. You've done a really good job with it. And especially with COVID, kids don't have a place to skate. And to have something in your backyard, it's so much more important for this year to have that. It's exceeded my expectations in terms of how it turned out. I've done this now the third year, and we, of course, when we were in Japan, we weren't building ice rinks. So for the last 4 years, we haven't done this. This is the first time I've done it in about 4 years. So this thing's turned out quite well. Anyway, we've been using it. My son's been out there. My daughter's been out there. We've have a hockey net out there. We're shooting into it. And the other day, our neighbor came by, and I would guess she's around 20, 21 maybe. So she's the daughter of the family next door. She came over while we were out on the ice rink and talked to my wife. And she said, I'm actually studying for a medical exam of some kind. I think she's trying to get into med school. I don't think she's in med school. I think that would be too early, but she's trying to get into med school, I think. And she came over and she said, would you mind, this was on a Wednesday, she said, would you mind not being on the rink from tomorrow at 11 a.m. till Friday at 11 a.m. because I'm going to be writing an exam. The exam is 24 hours and it is online, and I need absolute silence in my house. Okay, so just to clarify here, she was asking for two full days for you to not be on this rink?
Well, she said on Wednesday, is it okay from tomorrow at 11 a.m. to Friday at 11 a.m.? And I'll let you know if I need it to also extend into Saturday.
Okay, yeah.
And my first reaction was, oh, that's bullshit. Put a pair of headphones on, go to the front of the house, do something. But asking me to not be on my ice rink. Like, it's not like we're on this thing 18 hours a day. We're literally on it from when school ends, maybe around 4 until 6. And then we go in for dinner, and then that's it. So a couple hours a day. And we've been on it in the weekends a little bit more, like during the daytime. But it's not like we've been on it for 8, 9, 10 hours a day. So to me, I just felt like this is an unreasonable request by the neighbor.
Okay. All right. I see where you're coming at.
My wife's perspective on this was, it's only a day. Like, just let's be nice neighbors and go along with it. And so we did agree to just stay off it basically for one night. But I want your thoughts on this. Was that a big ask by her to say, can you please not be on your ice rink for 24 hours?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, so my thoughts on this are, I would agree with you on it in the sense that it's not a huge ask in the sense that it's really just the one day that she's asking to not be on the rink. It's not a huge sacrifice. I think if it extended into the weekend, like the Saturday, then I think that would be bordering on trying to, I think that would be a bit unreasonable to not expect.
So what would you do? Would you say, well, I'll get you on the first 24 hours, no problem, but sorry, I can't do it for the Saturday?
I think I would do that. Yeah. Yeah, because you're right. I think for the sake of 24 hours and for the sake of keeping good relations with your neighbors, which obviously is very important, I think it's you have a right to be a bit annoyed and to be a little irritated. But 24 hours is still
to be considered within quote unquote a reasonable request. But I think if she had come to you and said, "Oh, can you stay off your rink for the duration of Saturday?" then I think I would then speak up and say, "No, I don't think so, because my kids, it's their weekend and they have a right to be playing in their backyard. They're just being kids."
So these neighbors,
and I would really question as to how background noises from a skating rink would influence a test. I don't know. I've never obviously written an exam or test that would be that in depth and in detailed. But you said you got two kids playing in a small rink in a backyard. It's not like you got a hockey team out there. I really question as to how much noise you would be generating.
Well, I mean, there are the sounds of the pucks, and hitting the boards, and just the general sounds of voices, I guess. I mean, we're not out there screaming and yelling. So I guess, to go to your point about the intensity of writing something related to a medical exam, it sounds kind of unique. It's a 24-hour exam that they basically give you from a window of time to write the exam, going through the night even. It sounds pretty intense. God bless her for being capable enough to get into a medical school, which I think she's a very good student. But my whole thing was, is this reasonable? And I'm inclined to agree with you. Definitely for the keep the peace sake, 24 hours was not unreasonable. But had she come over and said, "Yeah, I'm going to need it to, if you could just stay off it again until Sunday morning or something," then that would have been completely unreasonable.
Yeah, I think at that point, if you would be certainly it would be justifiable if you were to say, "No, I don't think I can meet you comply with your request for the Saturday," because it's your backyard. You don't owe her anything. It is your right to use your backyard in any way possible, as long as long as you're not creating any kind of disturbances or noise complaints or having a huge party back there. But something as innocent as a bunch of Canadian kids shooting the puck around in the backyard, I don't see anything wrong with that. You should be entitled to do that.
It got me thinking because they have a pool, of which they're never in it. One of those families that build pools and then they're never in the pool, which in a way is actually a blessing, because I don't know about you, but I've lived next door to people with pools and kids, and it can sometimes be pretty noisy. But I was imagining, what if this was a Thursday during the summer and she was planning to be in her pool, or her family were going to be in the pool, and I had some sort of exam? Would it be reasonable for me to go over there and say, "Actually, could you stay out of your pool from Thursday morning at this time to Friday at this time?"
Okay, so it's interesting you mentioned about the swimming pool. If that was in my position, I don't think I would. Again,
would what?
Ask my neighbors to stay out of their pool. Because first of all, yes, I realize a bunch of kids in a swimming pool can be a bit noisy. But I really do think that would be a little bit unreasonable, and especially with today's technology where you have noise-canceling headphones. There's lots of different means to be able to, conduct a business meeting, conduct a podcast, and to not have that kind of noise in the background. It's not like you're recording a podcast out in your backyard and you got the noise of the pool next door. That's one thing in itself. But if you are down in your basement or in your home office, I would question as to exactly how loud noises from a pool or a skating rink could possibly be, that it would affect your performance or your concentration when writing an exam or holding a meeting or whatever it might be.
Right. Well, and I think sometimes you have to just take responsibility for things and find a way to make it work, like noise canceling headphones, or go to the front of the house, or go to the basement at the front, or whatever. Now, we do need to, of course, factor in that this is COVID-19 times, and that in a normal situation, perhaps this exam would have been taken in a school somewhere in a quiet room, or the person could go somewhere they knew or know that they were going to get absolute silence. So there is that factor. And that's not an option for her to do that. So I get that piece. But I guess there's other examples, I'm sure, of things that neighbors, I don't want to belabor this too much, but I'll share one more thing that this neighbor also asked us to do, of which you can give me your opinion on. So they have they have this pool, and there's trees, our tree branches hang over their fence. And so the neighbor asked me if we would mind trimming those trees back. First of all, is that a reasonable ask?
Okay, so the tree is on your side of the property then. But
yes.
if the branches are overhanging their side of the property, then I would think it would be their responsibility to get those branches trimmed.
In fairness, he did offer to pay for it.
All right. Then, yeah, I think that's a reasonable request. Yeah.
Okay, so that was request number 1. Request number 2 was we had it done, and then he came over and he said, yeah, it's still not quite trimmed back to the level that we would like. In fact, he had said he would actually climb up onto his roof and trim them himself. And if you look at what that would entail, for it not to end up in becoming a paraplegic, I would be shocked because the angle of the roof and him and the tree and whatever he would be doing to try to cut the tree, absolute 100%, this guy would be a paraplegic after he'd finished trying to do this.
Yeah. Stupid.
Because he would fall off the roof. It's all pavement down there. There's a fence. I could totally see this guy snapping his head off the fence, and next thing you know, there's 3 ambulances outside.
So you had a tree, like an arborist, come in, and they trimmed back the tree, and he wasn't satisfied with what they did?
Correct. So I told him I would check with the tree people. Sounds funny, huh? Tree people.
Yeah, tree people.
And the guy came out because we had to get a stump removed on another tree we had to have cut down. And I just said, hey, look, is there... The neighbor was asking about this tree. Could it be trimmed back some more? And he looked at it. He said the perfect thing that I was able to then use, which was, we cannot put this tree into any more stress than we've already put under. I said, that's all I needed to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, defer to the experts. So if this guy wants to be an ass and climb on his roof and risk his life and keep cutting down that tree, then that's on him. But hey, you've defer to the tree experts. The tree people know best, right?
We're moving into something else. I was going to stay off the grumpy old man thing, but I do need to let you know that we've gotten into some trouble, Paul.
Okay. What's happened?
Well, for those listeners who've recognized over the last few episodes that we have an official sponsor, Pace Painting. You're familiar with Pace Painting?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, our first sponsor joined us, I think, 3 episodes ago. They provide the coffee for our podcast. It's come to my attention, Paul, that you may have entered into a renovation in your home and or have finalized something regarding a renovation. And my understanding is that Pace Painting is not involved in that contract.
Oh, geez. You're exposing me on national television, maybe?
Well, national podcasting anyway. International podcasting.
There we go. International podcast, yeah.
So, we've been called out.
Okay,
the sponsor is on my case about this.
So
and
you've put me on the hot seat here.
Yeah, deliberately.
No, I have full confidence in Pace Painting, and I have used Peter for projects in the past, and I will do so in the future. In this particular case, we're getting some interior work done, some additional projects, and
yes.
The contractor that we had come in, we're able to get a good price based on sort of like an all-encompassing, detail of projects that would include painting, some wainscoting, some cabinetry that we're getting installed. So it's sort of an all-in-one price that was kind of hard to say no to.
Right.
But no, as I said, I have used Pace Painting in the past for exterior painting for my house. He did a magnificent job. Prices are good. I will definitely go back to him because there's always lots of painting to do. You never run out of painting jobs.
Yeah, don't get us into trouble with our sponsor. I mean, what's the next people that come along? Then we can't have similar issues like this. So, on behalf of We Talked About This, we apologize to our sponsor that one of our chief hosts has gone a different route, but it is not a reflection on the quality of work that you do. And I will speak on behalf of the co-host that he promises never, ever to engage in this sort of oversight ever again. Okay, we wanted to talk about inheritances. Our parents are getting older. You have unfortunately lost one parent a couple of years ago, and hey, we're at that age now where my parents are pushing into their late 70s now, and occasionally I know what it was, is that we're just doing some financial planning right now, and in the financial planning questionnaire, among many other questions such as, when do you want to retire, and what sort of investments do you already have, and what's your level of tolerance for investing, losing money, gaining money, risk and all that stuff. One of the questions in there is, as you're assessing all the different things, is expected inheritances. And I thought, what is that exactly? Is that reasonable for somebody to actually expect an inheritance? And secondly, should we expect that it's divided equally among our siblings if we have siblings? So you had said this was something you were also interested in. What about inheritances is on your mind right now?
There's so many different angles that you can look at this. When you say that, should we expect to receive an inheritance? The answer would be no. I don't think we should ever expect to receive the money.
Many people do expect it.
Oh yeah, I know they do. But at the end of the day, it is our parents' money, and they are free to do whatever they feel like doing with their money.
Yes.
Are they?
Are they?
Yeah. Why? Yes. Why should they? Why is there an obligation that you necessarily have to give your money to your children? So, for example, if you're involved in like a philanthropic organization, or if you want to sponsor people or an organization that you feel truly needs the money, then that should be within your right to provide that money to, or allocate that money to whoever you want to receive it. And I guess the same would also apply to children, in the sense that if you have multiple kids, should each child receive an equal portion? Mm-hmm. Or would you allocate it based on, children that perhaps need it the most, or have been the most useful or helpful, or the most loving to their parents? So, for example, if you have an estranged son that wants to have nothing to do with the parent, but let's say the other son cares for the elderly parent and has provided support and financial assistance, or whatever it might be. If that individual has been very actively involved in the care for that parent, should that child receive more money based on what they've done?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really tricky question, and there's really no right or wrong. There's really no right or wrong answer on this. But when you say that, should people expect to receive inheritance, and that's a big depends. It all depends on how much they truly need that money.
Does it?
Well, okay, where I'm going with this is the fact that when we're looking at, and this is very sort of specific to Toronto, real estate prices are going through the roof.
Yeah.
And I've had many conversations with my wife about the fact that our children, like they're the next generation, are going to have a really tough time being able to purchase a house. The fact that a regular home in Toronto typically goes for about $1 million and then some, that's almost like your starting price.
Yeah.
How can the next generation of people afford a house at $1 million starting price right off the gate? So in many ways, and I know this is very typical, especially within the city of Toronto, is that, a lot of people I know have the specific intent or idea that they would bequeath their house to their kids so that their kids have an opportunity to have house ownership within the city, because it would be next to impossible for them to be able to afford a house, as I said, well in excess of $1 million. So I view it in the sense that it's an opportunity that it would give your children a great, I guess, a foot up, or a helping hand.
Okay, you're how old now? How old are you?
If they need it. I'm 44.
44. I'm 48. Yeah. So my parents, when they pass away, I God only hopes that I'll be, much older than I am right now, well beyond the time that I would be purchasing a house. So,
well, that's the thing. Like we were lucky enough that we were able to purchase homes in our late 20s, early 30s, and our homes have appreciated in value so much. I think when we fast forward, and I don't have a crystal ball, I don't know for sure. However, my prediction is that the next generation of people, our kids, are going to have a much tougher time being able to purchase a house. So,
but I think the support you're going to require, they're going to require, is going to have to happen well before inheritance time.
That's true.
It might be grandkids more than kids, but then again, do I want my parents shaving off some of their inheritance to give to my kids to put toward a house? I guess it's their right. Going back to what you said, it's their right to use the money any way they want. But there's another point too. My kids are my kids, and how they are influenced, how they grow up, how they are supported is not necessarily up to my parents. So if my parents decided to give them money when they pass away, do I have a right to say, no, Johnny doesn't get $100,000 or $50,000 or $10 or whatever it is, or $500? No, they don't get that, because I don't want them having a leg up. They need to figure out how to survive on their own.
Yeah, and as I said, there's a lot of different angles that you can go with this. In that, okay, one point I'm going to make here is that I think if kids are already, I wouldn't say, comfortable or self-sufficient or have their own wealth, then one shouldn't expect to have an inheritance. So, for example, my brother and I both do quite well for ourselves. We're very comfortable. We own our own homes. I would not expect to receive an inheritance from my mother, in the sense that if she provides me with inheritance, that's great. It's very lovely that she would want to do that. But I would never expect to have that money. I would never say, oh, it's my right to receive that money, because quite frankly, I don't necessarily need that money to improve my quality of life. If I was someone that was, down and out a little bit and had some bad luck, then obviously an inheritance would be a good gesture to help someone that truly needs a helping hand. But yeah, as I said, there's so many different areas that you can look at this. And I want to, there's a really awesome quote by Warren Buffett. And we all know who Warren Buffett is. And interestingly enough, Warren Buffett, I should add, as of 2018, it has a net worth of $86 billion. So this man has a lot of money.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett's quote, when asked about leaving his immense wealth, inheritance, to his own children, his quote was, he wants to give enough money so that they would feel they could do anything, but not so much that they could do nothing. Think about that. That's a great quote. in the sense that,
that.
if someone, especially someone like Warren Buffett, who's worth an immense amount of money.
Yeah. And who will be giving at least half of it to the Gates Foundation, I believe.
Yeah. Well, apparently he says he will leave 99% of his wealth to philanthropic causes.
Wow.
It should be noted that I think his children are actually independently wealthy themselves.
Right.
They are self-sufficient. It's not like his kids need that money. But, okay, $86 billion is a little bit to the extreme there. But let's say if you had an inheritance of like $2 million, inheriting that amount of money could be a detriment to some people.
Yes.
So
there was a guy, Brett, there's a show called Dragon's Den. I believe one of the people on that show, the Canadian version anyway, was he said something like, if you want to see a form of child abuse, go give your kids $5 million. Very similar to Buffett, that giving them that money could imply they now need to do nothing, and that the ramifications of giving kids that capability is actually bad and abusive to them.
And a lot depends on the individual as well. We know some people that if they were to receive $5 million, that money would be spent within a year. I would like to think that if I inherited $5 million, I'd be pretty responsible, and sure, it would allow you to enjoy some luxuries and travel the world, that type of thing, but I would still be very smart with the money, and I wouldn't blow it away. So yeah, a lot depends on the individual, the circumstance that they're in. But yeah, that is a tricky one, because I was also reading in that over the next 10 years that the millennial generation, I'm assuming that would be us. Are we millennials?
No, we're not. We're older.
Okay, well, it said something.
Millennials are, I think, someone listening is going to know it, but maybe I'll look it up. 1980, people born after 82 or something like that.
Okay, all right. So we're a little bit older than millennials. So millennials would be probably around turning just in their 40s. Anyway, the point of this was that I was reading an article saying that millennials...
just so you know, I got it here. Millennials were born between 81 and 94/96.
Okay, so people that are
about 10 years older than us, or younger than us.
Yeah, so late 30s. So this generation is set to receive $68 trillion in inheritance by the year 2030.
Is this global? Globally?
I would think it would have to be global.
How much was it again?
68 trillion.
Wow.
So in terms of inheritance, it's the largest transfer of wealth in history.
And sorry, I missed it. What year did they say that would be applicable for?
By 2030.
2030.
Yeah. Because when you think about it, it's only recent generations that have been able to accumulate wealth. My grandparents' generation, so people that were born in like the 19-teens, for example, that generation didn't have as much wealth. I would say our parents' generation is really the first generation that was able to accumulate wealth, in the sense that during our parents' generation, that's when RRSPs came out, like retirement savings. There was more options with respect to better pensions. There was more an awareness to savings. So I think our parents' generation was the first generation that accumulated any wealth of anything.
At least here in North America.
Yeah, and yes, I should point out that this is very much a North American perspective.
Right.
But yeah, if our parents' generation was the first generation that accumulated any form of significant wealth, then our generation, you and I, will have even more wealth that we can then provide inheritance to our children.
Yeah.
But as I said, we don't know what the future is going to hold. And with everything going on with COVID, we don't know what the lasting effects are going to be on the economy. We don't have a crystal ball. If we did, we'd be millionaires ourselves. So I don't know what future is in hold for the next generation of kids, in the sense that they might actually need that inheritance.
But if you're depending on it, like if you need it / depend on it, what does that do? And then you're right, it can go in a million different directions. Like, my thinking is, are you entitled to inheritance? No. I don't think you are. So no, I shouldn't expect one. It's kind of like a bonus at work. We don't expect a bonus. But there's a lot of tricky parts to this. I want to throw in one more element before we move on. That is, does, in your case, where the money goes, if it's not going to go to you, does where it goes matter to you? If your mother decides, I'm going to leave money to the Horticulture Society of Whitby, or the Cat Foundation, Rescue Cat Foundation of Newcastle, or whatever, or even something maybe you might see as frivolous, like the Bunnykin Collectibles Foundation. The Bunnykins are those little dishes that people give to babies. I'm just trying to come up with something a little bit bizarre. Something you deem as frivolous in your mind, does that matter?
Well, I will say it depends. Obviously, it is her right to allocate her money wherever she wants. I think as long as that money isn't allocated to something where she potentially could have been swindled or influenced by someone. So, for example, if she said, I'm donating all of my money to my friend Joe or something like that, it'd be like, okay, who the hell is Joe?
Right.
Some old guy that, came up with some kind of a scheme or something to kind of, hornswoggle a bunch of old people to donate their money, because you hear about that all the time with all the various scams that target elderly people. I think as long as the allocation of her wealth is reasonable and expected, then who am I to argue with that? That is her wishes, and as long as she made that decision of clear mind and it wasn't under the influence of anything or she wasn't coerced, then you have to respect the decisions that they make.
One area that I've seen this become an issue is where mom or dad, the other person's, the spouse passes away, and then mom or dad meets somebody.
Yes. Yeah. And that's sort of what I was implying with that comment, is that if mom now has a boyfriend and this boyfriend somehow comes into the picture and inherits a substantial amount of money, then that's when you see a lot of family disputes come up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We had a situation like that in our family. I'm not sure how it ended up panning out. I never heard the whole story. I only heard that there was a relative of ours who was quite elderly, and their spouse passed away, and the family was concerned, that this person's been with their father in this case for 7-8 months, and if they pass away, like, are they going to end up bequeathing all the money from their estate to this boyfriend or girlfriend of 6 months? So it is a prickly topic for sure. Nothing really funny about this,
and it's been the subject of many movies as well. And it can certainly bring out the worst in people. I'll just leave you with an interesting stat. One last stat I just wanted to throw out here is that apparently 49% of people believe an inheritance will partly or completely fund their retirement. That's another sobering thought right there, in that people truly do depend and expect to receive an inheritance and rely on that inheritance to play a large role in their own retirement. Ooh, that's not good.
Yeah, they used to say you shouldn't depend on your primary residence to be a source of retirement income. But yeah, inheritances, absolutely. I could see people banking on it and being sorely mistaken and disappointed. This episode is brought to you by Pace Painting. Pace Painting, serving all your painting needs, whether commercial or residential. Reach Pace Painting at paintwithpace@gmail.com or via their Facebook page, Pace Painting Inc. Or call
Peter at 289-356-7744. Paint with Pace. What we're watching, we've added this segment, at least for now, the time being, that we want to share what we're watching these days. And what are you watching, Paul?
Well, I'm watching a really great show. It's called Yellowstone. And the show has been out for a little while. It's actually, there's 3 seasons. So it's been out, I believe, since 2018 or 2019. And there's a 4th season on the way. But it stars Kevin Costner, and he's how can I describe it? I don't want to give too much away here, but it's basically about Kevin Costner owns and operates a ranch in Montana, and there's various external factors that jeopardize the future of his ranch. It's a lot more to it than that. And you'd have to watch it to understand, but it's a really great storyline, incredible acting. Kevin Costner, as I said, is the main lead in this, and he's a fabulous actor. I love watching him, and this role really suits him as well. It's like he was meant to play this role.
Yeah, I was going to say anything on a Montana ranch would be a good fit for Kevin Costner. Where do you find this? Is it on Netflix or Amazon, or where do you find it?
It is on Amazon Prime. So that's where you find it. The show itself, I believe, is on the Paramount Network. So I think when season 4 comes out this summer, I think initially it'll probably be shown on Paramount Network. But yeah, eventually all episodes do make their way onto Amazon Prime. So my wife and I, we picked up this show, started watching it maybe about a month ago on recommendation from friends of ours. And it's one of those shows, I've seen it advertised many times, and it's always kind of caught my interest. But I never really got around to starting to watch it. But yeah, I'm really glad I did. This is an excellent show. I just finished season 1 and can't wait to keep going.
And what's it called again?
Yellowstone.
Yellowstone.
Yes.
Okay. Never heard of it, actually.
Well, check it out. I think you'd really like it.
I will. Well, for me, what I'm watching right now is a second viewing of a series that I've already seen. I believe there's 3 seasons and a 4th that is on its way, but was delayed by the COVID-19 situation. And that is Fargo, the TV series. Coen brothers, as many will know, made a movie called Fargo back in the early 90s, I think it was. It's about the happenings in a town called Fargo, which is North Dakota. And actually, North Dakotans remind me a lot of Canadians in a way, especially Northern Ontario, the way they talk and some of the mannerisms and things. But Fargo, the TV series, it's 3 seasons now, and each season is a different set of actors that, and they take a different time period. So for the first season, it's 2006, and Billy Bob Thornton is in the first season, which you either like or hate Billy Bob Thornton, I find, with people, but he's very dark, as is the Coen brothers. Anything they do is usually very dark. It's a bit depressing in that it's dark and gloomy, but there's a black comedy for sure in it that it does make you laugh at times. That it's just so preposterous, some of the things that these guys do and get involved in. But I highly recommend it. Fargo, if you're a Coen brothers fan, this series does not disappoint.
Once I'm done Yellowstone, maybe I'll check that one out. And what? Where do we find it?
It's on Netflix.
Oh, it is? Okay, good.
Yeah, Netflix Canada anyway. So I know Netflix can vary depending on what region you're in, but it is on Netflix Canada. Okay, let's finish off with weird news. And this weird news comes from our country here and our province of Ontario, and in a city of Windsor, the city of Windsor, which is not too far from us, a couple hours down the road. Ontario man breaks Guinness record for opening cans with mouth.
Now that's talent.
An Ontario man broke a Guinness World Record, but not any teeth, when he used his jaws to bite open 24 full beverage cans in 1 minute.
These are beer cans?
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Cans of Guinness. Oh, wait a sec. Huh. when I first read it, I thought it was cans of Guinness, but no, I think it's actually cans of pop or cans of soda here. It says here, Chuck Mady, 32, and mixed martial arts fighter from Windsor, was recorded on video using his powerful jaws to rip the tops off the cans, causing soda to spray all over him and the surrounding area.
Well, that's one way of getting in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Yeah, he said he was influenced by watching Guinness World Records Gone Wild on TV. He said there was a guy, Ryan Stock, who was doing it. His record was 11 cans in 1 minute, and he was like, I can do that. And Guinness confirmed Mady set the record at 24 cans. So he said the most important part of his technique is making sure he doesn't cut his mouth on the torn aluminum. So this guy actually isn't biting the tab off. He's biting the top of the can off.
Wow. That can't be good for your teeth. How could he do that without not chipping teeth or something like that?
Super dangerous. He says here, dangerous. My teeth are tough, Mady said. It doesn't hurt. Mady said he is now considering beating his own record. I know I could do another 5 more, maybe 10 more, he said.
Yeah, very unusual. Hey, he'd be a useful guy to have around if you didn't have a bottle opener or something.
I did hear the expression the other day, and I'm probably going to get it wrong. It said, as tough as Canadian teeth.
Really? Okay.
So,
I didn't think my teeth were that tough, but okay. Maybe they are. Either way, I'm not about to bite off any tops of beer cans, so that will not be my Saturday night, believe me.
Yeah, it is amazing what influences people to try to break records. I mean, we talked about the hot dog eating contests and the different things people do to their bodies. It's beyond me what inspires people to do these things. All right, we got to run. Stuff to do. So good chatting, and look forward to next time.